Welcome to Happening Multicultural Festival 2022. Um, Before we go any further, I would like to take a few minutes for the land acknowledgement. I recognize that I live and work in traditional indigenous territories, and I acknowledge that I'm currently located on the traditional territory of Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. I wish to express gratitude to Mother Earth for the resources we are using, and I would like to honor all the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have been living on the land since the time immemorial. Happening Multicultural Festival is the first and only Toronto-based festival created by community artists, giving center stage to newcomer, immigrant, and refugee artists. During Happening Poetry Nights, we celebrate poets who, among other things, identify as newcomers, refugees, or immigrants. Every Thursday in May 2022, there will be a poetry event with three readings or performances, as well as one interview. Despite the fact that poetry inhabits many geographical locations and speaks in different languages and accents, literature continues to be the most exclusive of arts and the most resistant against outsiders. My name is Bänoo, and I'm the poet curator of the series. It is now my pleasure to introduce the poets for tonight. The first poet of tonight is Mirabel, who's a Montreal-based poet. Her first full-length poetry collection, The Vanishing Act and The Miracle After, is forthcoming from Guernica Editions in 2023. Her chapbook, DREAM FRAGMENTS, received critical acclaim from the League of Canadian Poets and PRISM International. She was also the 2019 winner of Peterson Memorial Prize for Creative Writing. Originally from Mumbai, India, Mirabel has studied English Literature and Linguistics at McGill University, where she's currently pursuing clinical studies in speech-language pathology. Mirabel's poems have appeared in Carte Blanche, Yoke Literally, Dream Pop, and Glass, a journal of poetry.
Hi everyone, my name is Mirabel and it's my absolute pleasure to be here today. I'm going to be sharing two pieces of writing. Both of these are part of my full-length poetry collection, my debut, called The Vanishing Act and The Miracle After. It's coming out by Guernica Editions in 2023. So you have a little sneak peek here. The first piece of writing that I have is a poem. So let's just get started. It's called Back-Turned Me. I want to be more than an animal happening to itself. So I break open my spine like a fortune cookie. Forget your sleight of hand at the sight of your piece. I gladly forego dreams to guard the gateway. I comply with tarot readers and believe I don't believe in fate. I study syntax with a masculine voice. Pieces of meaning huddle close, but I turn your love away. Do I forgive you? only if you had made different choices. Should I forgive you? Only if you knew how to hear better voices. Now you sit in a fuss. Life cracked you right open, and your lifeline won't return. She is afraid of you, and you are afraid of life. Though she has a mole on her foot, which promises esteem travel. Though you wish the tree of your life hadn't been felled, she is too far down for you to start a new sentence. But a fortune teller did tell me, centuries ago, the story of a wandering family. Their young would read frantically the shapes of their elders' backs, so that they may learn the burdens those backs have borne, so that the lineage can learn from itself before it is born. Well, I'm getting old, and I haven't done much learning. Instead, I am the camel, still healing from its broken back. But do you think we might be lucky that I might have it in me to write another sentence in the name we shared? Luck, of course, is a loveless marriage with a better future. It only works if we make it work. The second piece of writing that I have here is called A Relative Visits. It's slightly longer, but I hope you resonate with it nonetheless. A Relative Visits. When I ask my mother, who is smart and educated, why she would be married to a lion no name, she cries once in the evening, and it's enough to keep a family of 3 afloat. But you are 33 and have seen the universe, which only stretched outward, and you were told he did not travel to strange places. But then you were raised with a different set of parents, and he was never in the old home where he made your lap full and left grease on your roughening hands. And when the new cooks came, you were already sliced in two. And you missed your mother, who sat you by the moon and the plants, even though it was a small life with pink bricks. It was easy not to be concerned with the world when it was clearly not concerned with you. They were loud, and there was at least some company for your inversions. One day he bought you a dinner table. It was nice to stand up from the plastic pink chudai, and you weren't very good with words. No, but you liked how everything found a way to move. When you left for the sea city, you were far from what your mother had been. She had the nose the size of a baby fist and freckles like black dill seeds, flaking. You thought of her back home, aging with the pink bricks. Then your youngest brother called. You took the fall for him. At home, the voices of the boys only got louder, and one thunderstorm, the sky took our rooftop away. I was so worried for him in this windowless tin house. He worked in a white suit with those pleats which fell just right. and he would watch you learn to read, though he was a father who was not able to write. It was shameful, yes, but the city needed far too much. But when you came across the garden, you didn't get to ask if you were sure. And we never know where she comes from, though she is always there. And she was the one you married because in a city of strangers, she made your fist heart open like a baked potato. And we never knew why we were alive. We just knew we are. One year, let me tell you, all the taps in my street ran out. It was loud, and I can really see it now. The day the sun took your mother's back. Before she woke up from her afternoon nap, you ran to the library for your life. And for the first time in your new statusless life, you found an ice cream man. He listened to your fears because you brought him exact change. He was too young when he had moved to the city, so he kept cuffing up his thrifted shorts. They said there were markets where you could line up the ice cream men, and you were just as old as 18 when the popsicle stick lost its scaffolding. So you went there often. And under the golden sky, you said you were tired of not being able to read. It wasn't too far off, the richness of each meaning, but how far away you were from the parents who you had a habit of forgetting at the train station. So you found love in being an electrician. And after all those nights when you would crawl home, you would finally notice your beard in a greaselit puddle, an oval bowl of untouched youth. You sniffed, but did not drink. When you heard of women going missing, you knew your daughter would be the master of her dreams. So you raised her in the house that would become your grave. There is no thrill in epilepsy. And that's really why I loved you. You were so young, with no fear for fire. We are sitting with bread on the neighbor's tandoor, waiting for it to fall off. Do we have plastic plates yet? No, I guess not. Right, Nanaji? Yes, not yet. And you saw her clean up after the boys, who were getting better at wearing anger. And it was quite clear she was a fixer. But hadn't your hands had enough, and so quickly? She grew taller, and you wished your family owned a mirror so you could show her. Because even through your cataract eyes, she began to look like someone who would leave this town behind. What's so wrong with asbestos anyway? I didn't know then. I don't know now. Back then we didn't know. We only saw. We had the sun on our backs and the children on our feet. We had been walking for so long. If you're really listening, Mary John, go long. Thank you.
Now, this is the time for me to interview Charles C. Smith. Charles C. Smith is a poet, playwright, and essayist who has written and edited 14 books. He won second prize for his play, Last Days of the Desperate, from Black Theatre Canada. He has received grants for writing from the Toronto Arts Council, Ontario Arts Council, and Canada Council for the Arts. Charles is the Executive Director of Cultural Pluralism in the Arts Movement, Ontario, and Artistic Director of Wind in the Leaves Collective. His recent books include Travelogue of the Bereaved, The Dirty War, The Making of the Myth of Black Dangerousness, Whispers, Destination Out, and Searching for Eastman, which was released in 2021 by Mawenzi House. Welcome to Happening Multicultural Festival 2022 poetry interviews. For now, we are so lucky to have Charles C. Smith with us. Charles, I'm really grateful that you are here, that you accepted to be here with us and share your experience and wisdom.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah,
it's a pleasure. Let's start with just asking a question about your journey, especially focusing on your immigrant poet journey.
Yeah. Well, many people don't see me as an immigrant poet, which is really surprising because I wasn't born in Canada. I was actually born in the United States. And there are significant cultural differences between American and Canadian poetry, particularly Black American poetry. So arriving here was really odd. The poetry scene was just so Anglo, Eurocentric, and, follow this patterns and that kind of stuff. And my poetry is more akin to the Black arts movement, connections with voice, and also wanting to talk about experiences of being Black, of being new to a country, of knowing that, previous centuries, Blacks had escaped into Canada, but also knowing that Blacks had escaped out of Canada to the United States. So just being able to really look at, what is this history of Black presence, which isn't really talked about, and how to see this sort of borderline, nation borders between people that cross those lines one way or another over time. So I think one of the first poems that I had published here was just about that, actually, me coming 100 years or so after Harriet Tubman, 130 years, something like that. And, obviously she's coming to escape slavery. I was just looking for a new place to live.
Awesome. Wonderful. I'm just glad I asked you that question. Charles, I know that you are involved in artistic projects with many different, not only poets, but artists of different identities. And a lot of us, of course, we have intersectional identities. However, the question that I want to ask you is that, do you, in all your collaborations and observations of the scene, do you see any differences between, let's say, immigrant poets or immigrant artists and other artists that share other factors of identity?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the immigrant artists I connect with are, mostly racialized or have different mother tongues. So the Latinx community, for example, we're not all are racialized, many are, but, white Spanish ancestry. And then folks like yourself from the Middle East, et cetera, from Asia. And, I find that we don't separate this thing of poetry from something else. I mean, we just sort of say, this is what it is, period. And here we have this poetry over here, there's dance over there, there's music over there. And it's like, that's just doesn't work, it doesn't work. And so there's a barrier there. I think it's being overcome a little bit. I know I keep pushing at it with the work that I do, and inviting other poets to do work with dancers and musicians, and ideally I could stage them. Because that's important to point out that, we do not see poetry as just this isolated group of words that we read and hope 10 people come to a reading. We want to mix with dancers, musicians, etc. For me, it's an African tradition coming from the griot, the gele, the storyteller, which again came through the Harlem Renaissance and came through the Black Arts movement. Some of it's happening here with Marlene Bessie Phillip, for example, and her work Zong, how she does that in performance and so on. And yeah, that to me is a big, big, big difference, is a sense of poetry is not a silo activity, I find. And I find many artists such as yourself, poetry is not just by itself. We like to engage it with other art forms.
Great. I'm glad you actually highlighted that, because I also find, coming from the Middle East, poetry is what people actually memorize, in protest, they shout, they chant, and it has that kind of social political dimension. And that is why probably one of the reasons it is the main genre. Still, it's not because it's disconnected produced in an ivory tower, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But here it's unfortunately like that. I'm glad you referred to the similarities that artists have, and probably if we could connect across the boundaries, it would really help all of us.
Yeah.
And in your practice, you do it a lot. You collaborate with musicians, with dancers, and pieces you produce are phenomenal. I actually really encourage people who are watching this interview, please follow Charles T. Smith on social media and go to some of the phenomenal, unforgettable events that he is part of and produces. Thank you. Now, if Charles, you know that Happening News Arts is an organization that primarily wants to support newcomers, immigrants, and refugees, especially from countries and backgrounds, other linguistic, let's say, backgrounds than English or French. And so that brings with it a lot of complications. So how would you describe the literary scene or the artistic scene for a newcomer from a different linguistic or cultural background?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, because a lot of what we have, in terms of accessing grants, number one, the English or French, but predominantly English in our part of the world, is a requirement. And then there's all this stuff, these online systems that limit word count and so on and so forth. So as if you're good enough to be able to navigate from your mother tongue to English, then you you have these number of words. I get it from the grant officer's point of view. I've seen some applications that just go on and on and on and on. However, it doesn't take into consideration there are other ways that immigrants might be able to. I know the TAC now offers opportunities for people to present video for their application. It's probably different to review. I haven't been on a jury that's done that, but it's now out there as a possibility. In Toronto, it's important because how many languages are spoken in Toronto? And are we hiding our artists, or are we giving them opportunities to come forward? We're also in a multilingual country. Yes, we have our two official languages, as they say, but we have indigenous languages that have not been, entirely killed, and others that are resurfacing. And then obviously we have people coming in from around the world. So, Arabic, various Indian languages, Chinese, whether it's Cantonese or, otherwise. I mean, these are, Spanish. And many people just very active. I remember once I saw a play that was done by a Luna Theater. It was a one-woman play, and it was done all in Spanish with subtitles. We got it. It was a brilliant play. And so language can be overcome. We see it all the time, and it shouldn't be a barrier, but sadly right now it tends to be. I always feel that even though my poetry is done in English, if I perform with a group, I'm asking people, you can buy the book. Just enjoy the experience. Immerse in the experience when you're there, because that's the most important. How do you feel? Forget what you're thinking. You can read the book later on.
Awesome. Exactly. I'm asking this question because you and I primarily are wordsmiths, right? We use words, and a lot of immigrants, I feel, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, please correct me. I think that immigrant writers and poets have the greatest challenge among immigrant artists, because language is our main medium of expression.
Yeah.
And so this brings me to actually to my next question. And the question being that, do you have any suggestions, recommendations, strategies for artists and writers and poets to so-called to succeed in the literary world, to kind of get the recognition or at least acceptance?
Yeah. This might be a conversation for MuseArts to have with some of the guilds, like the League of Canadian Poets, for example, the Writers Union of Canada, the Playwrights Guild, to kind of talk with them. And I know they are opening up more and more to artistic expressions done by people from quote unquote diverse backgrounds. And this might be a really good conversation to build up the advocacy around the acceptance of writing that is done, or performances done outside of the two official languages. I think it's really needed. People can do the literal translation, so here's what the poem means. But as you said, we wordsmith. And it was interesting, I was on a conversation the night with Lillian Allen, and we were talking about that, how we're making music out of these words, right? It's not just these words. It's like, we're trying to find the right musical note for each word. I'd love to hear. I mean, I've seen, what's his name? I've got a dancer. It's escaping my mind. His names are, but anyway, perform where he's actually reading Sufi poetry in the mother tongue. I mean, I know Rumi or Hafiz, and so I can go look it up later. But what's amazing is just the beauty of his articulation, his performance. So that, I think, is something that we tend to miss these days, that poetry is about the music of language.
Exactly, and for a person to, let's say, to kind of get to a place where they can achieve that kind of mastery over the target language, to be able to be musically appealing to the audience in the second language or in the foreign language, that rarely ever happens. I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
No, it rarely happens. But part, I think, is the way that we listen to poetry is that we're so interested in what is the meaning. There was a funny story about it's the British poet. Her work was being taught in high school, and so she took the test based on her poem. She failed.
Yes, I heard about that too. Oh my God, yeah. Because the way it is taught academically, right?
Yeah. Her own poem. And so, and again, so it's like, what do we think of when we talk about poetry? To me, poetry is the next best thing to prayer. And so in all of that, it's, there's this real emotional, and it's the music of the soul that comes forward in all of this stuff. And it just gets missed with this, what does it mean?
Exactly. Anyway. It's not just the content, it's the form, and it's intertwined. It's so well put. Like, you're very quotable. The lines that the things that you said now. I'm going to go back and watch this video and write some of these poetries close to prayer. It's exactly the case. Thank you, Charles.
The person I was mentioning is Sashara Zarif. Fellow countryman of yours from Iran, and is very much, in the Sufi tradition, if we want to call it that. But man, wow, you watch him perform and read and sing, and it is spiritual moment. He's such an incredible performer.
Yeah, we call poetry, like in Iran, it's called the king of arts. It influences other arts. It has influenced music. It has influenced calligraphy, painting. Everything is just, is inspired by poetry. Right?
The way it should be.
The way it should be, exactly.
And here we are, the poorest of all arts workers.
I know. So underappreciated. We need to do something about it.
Yes, we do.
Charles, I'm so grateful that we've had this conversation and connected. Before I end this, we end this interview, do you have any questions for me?
No, I know your work. I've seen you a number of times and hoping to see you again and to invite you in to do some stuff together as time goes by. Because again, when you read, you read. I mean, this is like, yeah, it's you get the audience because you're engaged, right? And so it's that stuff that's really quite beautiful. And that's the thing I love about what Muse is doing, is really bringing this together to push forward that, you know, we have many immigrants who are settling in this country, 400,000 a year. There's going to be a lot of artists in there. So how do we make sure that they have, you know, they understand, but also the society and the funders in particular, and the networks understand who we are and what we need, because you know we're vibrant artists.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So we all need to work together
Yes, we do.
To create change. What I really admire about your work is that you do not take it for granted that the change needs to come from outside. You
Yeah.
initiate change.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is very inspiring. And I wish more immigrants look at the scene like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard, as you know. I mean, you're trying to make a living if you've got family or whatever. And then, you know, in Toronto these days, the prices just keep going up and up and up. So we have artists who are leaving Toronto now, not even immigrant artists, just artists who just can't, you know, pay the rent anymore here. So go to, you know, places like Hamilton or where it's less of a fee these days to survive. Yeah, but we've got to do something. I mean, well, we got to continue doing something. That's why Muse is really important as an organization, and bringing you in particular, you know, as you have been working with them for the past couple of years around the place of poetry in the immigrant art expression. Yeah, so it's been wonderful to see you continue in that way, and your own reading series, which continues as well.
Yes, yeah, we have started again this time online. Yes, hopefully more people can catch this
Yeah.
as long as it continues, because
Yeah.
these things come and go, you know,
Yeah.
depending on the situations.
Hey.
Charles, thank you so very much. We're grateful that you could join us and you spent time sharing your vision
Happy to do so.
truthfully and boldly. And I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for asking. Happy to do so. Whenever you edit this, please send me a copy. I'd be happy to circulate. And whatever you're doing at Muse around poetry, just send it to me. Happy to circulate.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
You too.
And we'll
Thank
see you soon, I'm sure.
Sure. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We will continue tonight's event with another poet, Larissa Lai. Larissa Lai is the author of 8 books, including the novels Saltfish Girl and The Tiger Flew, recipient of the Jim Duggins Novelists Prize, the Lambda Literary Award, the Astria Award, and the Tiptree Honor Book, and finalist for 7 more. She holds a Canada Research Chair at the University of Calgary and directs the Insurgent Architects House for creative writing there.
Hello, everybody. Greetings from Treaty 7 territory. I'm coming to you here today from the traditional homelands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda. The city of Calgary, where I live, is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. My name's Larissa Lai. I'm a poet, and my most recent poetry book is called Iron Goddess of Mercy. I'm so honored to have been invited to the Happenings Festival and really touched by Bänoo Zan's invitation. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to read to you 4 little sections from this book. So it's a long poem. There's 64 fragments altogether, and I'm going to read 4 of them for you. What else do you need to know? This book, if it addresses subject matter, addresses the troubles in cultural activist communities over the last couple of decades, but it's also thinking about the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong and other troubles that have plagued that city for the last couple of centuries. So I'm going to start with fragment 51. Dear Oolong, if there were no such thing as tea, none of this would have happened. Bone, gukbo, hungpin, lungching, and tikunyam. I hum, infusions a solution to remaining alert to irony, as sleepers puff opium, trading the doozy of drowsiness for the carrot of charity, draining the ort cloud of our distant origins. Alert in the iron box, Tempest teases schoolyard bullies flipping their hair like Farah. Mine's too flat to feather. Birds gather in conferences, unable to backcomb for the stand-up comedian or punk rock pork hawk. My dialect ditzes for the fetal leaf unfurling in hot water as English breakfast, Russian caravan, Prince of Wales, or Earl and Lady Grey. I hack for smack, heroin, morphine, or crack as Jardine Matheson plies the China trade, pirating porcelain, silk, cotton, and tea, items of use traded for the inducement of rest. That's okay. I'll dream my way back to your loving arms race, Cold War or trade war, parading handbags from Prada, Coach, and Chanel as students toss Molotov cocktails against tear gas on the MTR. Our scars glisten bright as stars fishing for birds in the Silver River, a sliver of memory flashing light on our addictions enforced by gunboat diplomacy, while geomancers crack ox scapula for a route out of psychic unrest. What metal could test this gunpowder, green, or iron goddess as my fireworks go up in smoke? I poke for a new Berlin, find a cross on the road as fentanyl crisis boom echoes across centuries of artificial sleep. Perturbed galaxy ejects, tidal stream of stars, river jumps fish. This is fragment 55. Dear Bodhisattva, our administration denies your application, requests further documentation on the relations of your emanations, rendering dubious the station of your creation. We need fists to prove this. We need fish, we need bones, a pound of mesh, the behest of the donor laying kroner on the holler of your partial dollar. We need fodder for our error. We'll take your tribute, your mother, your father, a grist of sisters, and your heart and liver to luck our buck. Clean the hands of our boys, their pleasures and ploys are the first ducks in our row. Your attitude of beatitude belies ingratitude to the ones who died for the sins they pinned on you. Blue? Achoo! Your allergies a cover for the coven roasting witches we hunted to make the world spin the other way round. Have your say. We'll listen to the first sentence, substituting every noun for a clown in brown makeup, take up every connotation for our own elation. The conflagration won't talk about a past that doesn't serve it soft as a futon for our loft or ice cream at the takeout with strawberry sauce. Lay your lubber on the tracks of the hack, cracking codes to keep what we have under wraps. We'll stack your vertebrae backwards to slow your cerebral progress through dense biscuits of empty carbs, while we lark on a wing of our own narking, build more parking for CEOs and fund managers while you bandage what's bleeding. We got to keep on feeding. It's how we're leading in the polls for trolls. Stow your egg roll till you've grown more bean sprouts, grouted the wall we've built to keep you out and double glazed the glass ceiling. Once more with feeling, we want you reeling the bludgeon of fake news till the truth makes you stupid, caught in the loop of chasing the tail we pinned on your donkey. Had enough? You're through? Here's a revolving door to take your exit. All the world's a gauge of how we'll measure you by a yardstick. Turn to beepers, doubling down on the best bloopers we lifted from the stone of your phone. Don't groan. Your loan's overdue on accumulating interest in the algorithm of our decision baking lesions deep in the meat of your liver. We'll peck it out for you at a good price, calculated in rice. Be nice, and we'll throw in an eagle for free. Sister Rita hawks a gob, scoffs at toffs, sips stuck kanji. 58. Dear Echo Chamber, the difference between, oh, sorry, this isn't the one, I'm so sorry. 58 is not the one I wanted. Oh, I'm so sorry, this is the one I wanted, it was 59. 59. Dear Pool, only for you I doff my feather dress. Swan sings sadly to lake, already ballerina thin on the verge of disappearance. Will you mourn me when I'm clean? I shed flesh, dreaming of princes who won't split the check, dreaming of other swans. What bill does the one who spies buy? When the hunter looks, is it me or his own image he seeks? Does he dream becoming pure as the hunted, long for the dogs who lick his hands instead to shred him, release him from his own private emperor? Or does he want my disappearance so he too can peloton the pool, contemplate his rugged individual, reach out to grasp his own forgotten beauty? My hands swing digital before the last part of me vanishes into ether. I flit tree to rock, mainframe to brain drain, seeking to say back the code to release trauma's treasure. I measure, have I stated my case, laid waste to Ducks Unlimited, clamoring to get in the right row for the right show? I retweet, remember massive wings that arched open to sky. Now satellites circle higher than my line of flight, dish the deal fast as data, spin the whirl of dizzy planets unwinding death to dance. Do you hear me in the circuits calling out my love? Or only the hounds, moon-starved, ravenous, and confused over who's their daddy? All those colorblind soldiers I nursed in my white uniform. I storm, I mourn, screech my owl into gale force wind. You dim duck, to love the single swan is already surrender to the dying core. And I'll read the last one, which is number 64. Dear Tao, old rotary, turtle shell squeal whistling in flames to name the hell of a revolutionary god. I split my cod, debone its spine to line a whispered history. Astronauts' impossible labor climbs back down millennia, returns to Earth. The E of Qing blusters to Shang ancestry, priestess geomancer of a bad romance. I'll take a chance on democracy from below, glowing in the slow heat of an other ember. Guilt shines beneath quilt of magpies, flashing shimmery feathers as Protestant lies down on her bed of nails, dials dialectic for that long distance feeling, beguiled by the gush of blood staining the shroud of her own making. What king could ding this, melt dragons in cauldrons to brew a better soup? I stoop, regroup, loop Yue for Tinhao, Gunyam for ocean goers, Avalokiteshvara of the long march across deserts, Bodhisattva of water, queen mother of a different west, rescues father and brothers from massive spiral sea to sky storm. Now her incense coil burns above, snakes from ceiling of wet temple, steps from station of the cross. We were not yet Chinese when Shang was ancient. I dream my being returned to Weaver's once and future North Star. Dear Tongyan, I pilot my ship on South China Sea, blink my split toenail, cast net for wishes, bungle my smuggle for a pot of rice, steamed with salted fish. Echo wagers cap against standard, cues pool table to return love's body in remembered alphabets, lunar pull. Thank you so much for listening to me. And again, such an honor and pleasure to be here. I wish you a very excellent reading, and I hope you enjoy the readings of the other poets tonight. Good night.
Our last performer of tonight is Nasim Asgari. Tehran-born Takarakto based Nasim Asgari is a dreamer, thinker, seeker, and student of the truth. She's a multidisciplinary artist using visual arts, sculpting, installation arts, with poetry and performance at the core of her practice. Writing from the age of 9 and performing since the age of 12, she has cultivated a voice and the words to relay the truth and to bring attention to what is often undermined and dismissed in the world. Nasim has performed and facilitated workshops at events, poetry slams, and protests internationally. Her poetry anthology is titled What Was Swept Under the Persian Rug.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي قال رب زدني علما لبيك يا حسين لبيك يا زينب. The way home will always follow me everywhere I go. I'm still searching. For as long as I'm on this earth, I know I'm cold, but I'm getting warmer and warmer as time is passing, extending my hands, begging before the heavens as I kneel and attempt to speak with God, even though I know my ego is only speaking to myself. I will burn and rise in the same breath. I will burn and rise in the same breath. I'll hold on to my heart until I reach the gates of heaven or hell. This is all I've got left. Make intentions in my heart and lock it up in my left hand. This world will teach you of Shaitan's ways. Don't you ever doubt his plan. God will lead you in the best directions, towards the best places. Remember that he is the only constant, but the devil still knows of the contents of my right hand. I twirl and twirl and twirl. I run and run and run. I run towards the final destination. Sometimes I don't even know if I believe it exists, but for a fact I know it's approaching. By God, justice is the answer to all of this careless shoulder shrugging. Justice is the answer to all of this stirring soul searching. I will weigh both good and evil throughout the weight of my entire existence. Or try to. I will listen intently to what the voice inside of me is saying. I will balance domes down my spine to see if I'm a true Libra who possesses any iota of true balance. I will shake like the minarets of Iran, like a mountain during an earthquake, potentially stumbling, never falling, sometimes transporting slow but never fully stopping, always hoping to grow. Or is that just a false self-proclaimed prophecy? This I know as much as I know of any certainty, meaning I don't. But I will attempt. And it's all about intent. I will hold my own guts into place. I will take as many deep breaths as necessary for you to never see the life inside of me constantly shake. I will hold this heart gently. I will hold this heart gently because this baby is still absorbing the shocks of 24 years of questions, missing childhood memories, early adulthood moments, like scars stitched on the backs of my eyelids. But it's okay, because I've got prayer super glued all throughout my membranes. I will hold my heart gently. I will hold my heart gently. I will hold this heart gently. I will hold my heart gently. This is a reminder to myself to hold my heart gently. This is a reminder to hold your heart gently. Because a grenade can be deadly. وطن کجا، خانه کجا، دل کجا، عشق کجاست؟ وطن کجا، خانه کجا، دل کجا، عشق کجاست؟ This immigrant family pretends to be okay with Canada's freezing cold weather. But deep down, this immigrant family knows that despite the motherland's twisted politics and politricks, home is still better. This immigrant daughter asks immigrant father why he would ever leave a country he almost died fighting for. In a war, he lost his brothers. Immigrant mother searches to fill her time with work and community, seeking to fill the void of having her sisters around, of missing her mother. Immigrant brothers seek to fill the void of having cousins and friends around. They fill the void through different means, sometimes movies, sometimes soccer, sometimes drugs and narcotics. They're on anger alert often, and I can't even blame them, these immigrant brothers. So much love for these immigrant brothers. They ask, وطن کجا، خانه کجا، دل کجا، عشق کجاست؟ وطن کجا، خانه کجا، دل کجا، عشق کجاست؟ This immigrant daughter, immigrant sister, immigrant girl, churning and turning into woman, is stuck in between places, doesn't know where her place is, seems like outer space is the only place she will feel at home, not in these earthly spaces where she doesn't even know where home is. So she found solace on empty spaces, in pages, in words, in art, knowing this too can sometimes feel like a curse. But this immigrant daughter writes, this immigrant daughter writes, this immigrant daughter writes, وطن کجا، خانه کجا، دل کجا، عشق کجاست؟ وطن کجا، خانه کجا، دل کجا، عشق کجاست؟ Because we are the children who fell in between cracks, in between country maps, in between languages, cultures, oceans, borders, and fell out of the family back home's photographs, the ones who need to lose themselves to be found, the ones who drown themselves inside their own selves just so they can at least begin to call their own bodies home. We are the children who can't call any land on this earth home, because every house we lived and loved in has thrown us out, while also taking the non-existing welcome mats by the front door. So we ask, and we ask, we wonder, and we ask, وطن کجا، خانه کجا، دل کجا، عشق کجاست؟ وطن کجا، خانه کجا، دل کجا، عشق کجاست؟ نمیدانم چرا هر کجا که رو میکنم فقط میبینم تو رو، در هر لحظه‌ای که میتونم، که میدونم فقط کنم سخن از تو. نمیدانم چرا من فقط دانم اسم تو، ولی در ته دلم در عمق ذهنم ندارم خبر از تو، ندارم پاسخ از تو، من ندارم هیچ نشانی ز عشق از تو وطن. I seek to understand of self, at least I used to, until the honey drip turn hard, turn gold, turn glue. Forgive fortune until dawn, I prayed and begged on my knees into dusk, still forgot what time it was, tumbleweed into gratitude, radical they say I break in two, as I hold on to the last traces of sky, as I morph and shift into moon foolish, I find myself allowing sin to take over, letting sun forget my skin. I see through. Once upon a time, my aunt used to melt the smell of everything homey to my clothes, just so I knew where to return. She had the ability to clean these melodies, like Maman has the ability to purify these enemies, etc., etc., and so much more. I thought you would never let me go. You said you would never let me go. I know you're a man of your word. I believe you. But I also know that the sun can burn you when you get too close. But I beg you, don't let me go. You said you would never let me go. I believe you. I have faith. Don't let me go. Because this world is a world of struggles and trials. I will continue to survive. I will place all that's been put onto my plates and make a balance. Mizan, maybe if I share my hardships and tell you of the monsters and demons that have made a home in me, you can make less mistakes. Dealing and healing never end. It's just the methods that morph and shift. Darling, don't lose yourself in the process. Growth can feel uncomfortable. Don't let the bitterness make a home inside of you. A monster, Loch Ness, white people fairy tales, unfazed. Bloody Mary can never make a home inside of this brain. Maman's already taught me the ways. Surah Falaq infused in these veins, soft to the core, possessed by every sunrise. The thorns inside of me are made up of raindrops, letting go of the sky, just unbelievably missing and craving the earth's touch, believe me. A phenomenon, undefined, unbothered, untouched. Dreams within dreams. My dreams are hard to reach. Whether I'm asleep or my eyes are wide open, looking into the midst of the forest, surrounded by the noise of the ocean beneath me, spreading my wings, being set free of the cages I'd built inside me. It's clear to see and witness that sometimes you are your own enemy. But I'll break through. All chains break eventually. we will break through. All the chains will break eventually. All borders will fall eventually. All empires will have to say goodbye eventually. At some point, our bodies will die eventually. Eventually, we will realize that love is the only answer. God willing, eventually. I pray for the present and the future, that we all learn from our mistakes and continue to elevate and rise eventually. These words will be a testament to the life we've lived. Any good is from God. May the mistakes be forgiven. May we leave positive memories. Peace be with you. May the breeze call you home. May you find peace eventually.
This brings us to the end of tonight's show. Huge thanks to our poets, to the festival team, Paula Gomez, Paula Sofia Morales, Natalia Rus, Alex Oscuyano, and all the other volunteers working hard behind the scenes. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.